take the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Prime Minister, I hope he's listening in. Honorable members of Cabinet, honorable fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, fellow Fijians. I rise to respond to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Fiji's address in opening the first session of this House on Monday, November the 26th. Madam Speaker, please give me this opportunity to address the nation and give my views on the 2018 elections before I respond to His Excellency's address. Citizens who chose to exercise their right, Madam Speaker, to vote have spoken. They have decided on who they want to be their government for the next 4 years. I congratulate the Prime Minister, Honorable Retwarenge Bainimarama, for winning the elections. I must also acknowledge the increase in the number of women participating in national decision-making at the highest level in this august House. During my time, only 2 women were members of Parliament. One of them became my Deputy Prime Minister, and the second was a Cabinet Minister throughout her term. It is encouraging to experience the progress that we have made thus far in ensuring the effective participation of women in all aspects of national leadership. I'm also proud, Madam Speaker, that I opened the door to recruit women into the Fiji military forces when I was commander. And one of the very first recruited is a very senior member of the RFMF, now completing her course in a very prestigious military college in Australia. She graduates tomorrow, and I congratulate her. And I also congratulate her husband, one of the senior ministers of the Fiji First Government. The Fiji First Government has been elected to run the nation for the next 4 years. The margin is not as high as they would have liked for those who cast a valid vote, but I agree with honourable members who have said in this honourable House that a win is a win, no matter what the margin. On that note, Madam Speaker, I add my words of praise to our national rugby team for their win against France, one of the great rugby nations of the world. As a former national rugby player and vice captain in my last test in 1977, and a trustee of the Fiji Rugby Union, I say that I'm very proud, and I'm sure all Fijians are very proud of our team's performance. I acknowledge the presence in the gallery of one of those that toured England with me in 1970, Madam Speaker. I thank all voters who voted, especially those who voted for me and for Sodalpa. I apologize to some of our voters, particularly those in the Konrote and Unalevu, because I was prevented from visiting them by ongoing police and court commitments. In spite of that, they still had faith and trust in me and in Sodalpa. And I thank them most sincerely for their support, and I hope that they will continue to pray for us and the party as we move forward. I'd like to assure them that we will continue to do our best and push and promote our course in trying to build unity by working together in cooperation with government through effective debate and sharing the truth in this august House. I strongly believe also, Madam Speaker, that the low voter turnout emanates from the difficult political environment faced by the voters to freely make their democratic choice, because of the number of legislations in place that undermine true democracy. These laws limit political parties' opportunities to dialogue with the public and result in a media that is fearful during the writ period.
Same laws in 2014.
Madam Speaker, Section 115 of that particular law limits voters or voter education awareness by civil society organizations. Voters are more confident and responsive to civil society outreach programs rather than the outreach programs put on by the political parties. I believe that if civil society organizations were given the opportunity and the support to provide voter awareness programs, our citizens would be better informed of their civic responsibilities and their right to vote without fear. Madam Speaker, I'd also like to inform the people of Fiji that even though SODALPA and our fellow opposition party, the National Federation Party, are sitting here, we do so without prejudice to our right to file a petition in the Court of Disputed Returns regarding the 2018 general election processes and results within the time allowed by law. I assure the nation that SODALPA will follow the rule of law in the process to be undertaken by a legal team in the courts. And to our supporters, I urge calm and restraint. We will follow the rule of law. I congratulate my honorable colleagues on the opposition side of this honorable House for our joint result of the NFP and SODALPA efforts. For the National Federation Party to retain the number of seats to gain that they won in 2014, and for SODALPA to gain 6 more seats are no mean feats. When seen in the true context of fighting the elections against a formidable political group that had dominated public life and attention in our nation successively for 12 years. Further enhanced by our Prime Minister's international profile, afforded by Fiji's presidency of the Climate Change Conference of Parties, a world effort to mitigate the effects of climate change and global warming that the government coalition of the SPT and GBP, with me as Prime Minister, took Fiji into with the late Honorable Kaukimare's participation in the first Earth Summit in Rio in 1993. To all our supporters and those who voted for me, spread right across our nation and out to the international community of Fijians, I say thank you all very much. I commit myself to serving you for the rest of my life. Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to acknowledge the address by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Fiji, General President Konrote. Madam Speaker, I have known His Excellency since 1966, when he was a school cadet, NCO in Natambua, and I was in the Queen Victoria School Cadet Unit. He joined the Army 1 year ahead of me. He as a private in 1967, and I as an officer cadet in 1968. We then served together until I left the Army in 1991, after my recommendation for him to be my successor was overruled by government. He was one of my company commanders when I was battalion commander, the Fiji Battalion, serving as part of the United Nations Interim Forces in Lebanon from 1980 to 1981. Some might not have been born at the time, Madam Speaker. During the most volatile years of peacekeeping operations there. His company performed excellently in very dangerous situations, with high risks to lives, with him showing exemplary conduct and courage. For his role, Madam Speaker, and his command, I recommended him for the award by Her Majesty the Queen of the prestigious Military Cross for bravery. One of then Major Konrote's soldiers also received the newly instituted then Queen's Gallantry Medal. That soldier, Corporal Nabutubuto, is now retired and lives in his village in Wainubuka, Thailand North. My second company commander, whom I also recommended for the same award of the Military Cross, and who received it in the Queen's Honours List in 1981, and became a commander, Brigadier retired Ratu Epeli Nganlau, whose very loyal and loving wife of 44 years, Andiatera Modiwanga Mara Nganilau, was buried in the chiefly burial grounds of Buninduba, the chiefly Aisokula family of Lalambes. May her soul rest in peace, and may the peace of God be upon her family. Madam Speaker, I will be failing in my duty to all Fijian voters as leader of the opposition, where the two opposition parties represent more than 40, this morning I heard it's 49%. I worked out 47% of the votes cast. If I do not respond to His Excellency's address with honesty, sincerity, and conviction, based on the truth and the current political socio-economic realities on the ground. Madam Speaker, I take seriously the oath I made on Monday the 26th to defend the rule of law and the rights of the people, and to act with integrity and diligence in carrying out my responsibilities. And I make this response to the President's speech in the spirit of that oath. I consider as well that Parliament is the highest court of the land, given its law-making powers, which include overruling the judiciary. Therefore, I solemnly confirm that I will do justice to all the people without fear, favor, or ill will. The same commitment of the oath made by our judicial officers. And this is consistent with my own motto of doing good to all with malice towards none. Against this backdrop, Madam Speaker, I'm humbled and touched by His Excellency's plea that we must aspire to have a Fiji that is stronger, more vibrant, and prosperous, and a people who remain united, committed to a common purpose, and filled with true love for all their fellow Fijians and their nation. I sincerely believe and am committed to a united, vibrant, and prosperous Fiji, where all the different communities can live together in peace and harmony. Madam Speaker, actions speak louder than words, and we must all walk the talk rather than just saying rosy words without any action for dialogue, understanding, or mutual respect for one another. Madam Speaker, earlier in the day, before His Excellency opened our parliamentary session, just after we were sworn in as members, in this August House, and we then considered the standing orders published and gazetted in March of 2017. All I did after that, Madam Speaker, was to request for this August House to consider amending the standing orders to allow the people of Fiji to present petitions as was done freely since independence, instead of it being curtailed by the imposition of a certain percentage that limited the ability of the opposition. The people were denied the hearing of their petitions by the undemocratic rule at the time in standing orders that petitions required 40% of the members of Parliament to approve the referral of it to standing committee. Previously, all petitions were referred to standing committee automatically, but we have witnessed so many petitions that have met their demise on the floor of this Parliament by forced numbers in the government. A feature of democratic government that I am hoping can be improved on during our term in this Honorable House. Yeah. I pray that government will not amend the standing orders to deny almost half the voting population of our country by increasing the threshold votes to 50% of the members of the House, just to disqualify the 47% represented on this side of the House. Don't do it. I would like to assure the nation that opposition parties are here to work with government so that the people of Fiji get the best out of the August House rather than just more confrontation. We will continue to hold the government accountable, as it is the duty of the loyal opposition, and offer the people a view of the alternative government. Madam Speaker, I acknowledge the presence in the gallery of the erstwhile chair of the Public Accounts Committee during my time as Prime Minister, and the father of the Honorable Attorney General. Madam Speaker, some honourable members on this side of the House have expressed reservations about what they perceive as selective references to the coups in Fiji, 1987, 2000, and 2006, in His Excellency's address. Madam Speaker, His Excellency reminded us of the events of 1987 and 2000, where on both occasions a democratically elected government was removed at the point of a gun. However, we heard nothing of the events of 2006, where a democratically elected government was also removed by the military commander himself, now our Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, I spoke at length about my personal relationship with Excellency during our time in the Fiji military forces. In 1987, Madam Speaker, he was my Chief of Staff and Deputy Commander. We worked very hard together to maintain calm and restore order in a country hurting with race feelings. I commend the senior officers and officers of all ranks of the forces at the time who maintained stability and order before entrusting the governance of our nation to our first President, His Excellency, the late Ratu Serpenaya Kanatamatu Nganilao, himself a very distinguished chief, soldier, and statesman. His Excellency General Konrote did not want to cover up the coup of 1987 because it was a coup and was against the law. But he, like the rest of the officers and men, and there were no women in the army at the time, of the Fiji military forces, was instrumental in the restoration of order and transition back to civilian rule under an interim government, and the formulation of an enabling constitution of 1990 to return Fiji to Parliament in 1992 for the review by the people in the Assembly, beginning in 1995 and ending with the enacting of the 1997 Constitution Amendment Act of the 25th of July, 1997, exactly 7 years after the decreed promulgation of the 1990 Constitution, as specifically stipulated in that Constitution, Madam Speaker. In 2000, Madam Speaker, General Konrote was Permanent Secretary, responsible for the RFMF. Again, he was involved in efforts to maintain law and order after George Page's coup attempt in May. Madam Speaker, he had to mention that coup because it again brought to the surface of our everyday life in Fiji, the fragile state of our interracial coexistence. He was still Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs and Defense when the mutiny happened in December of 2000. He saw for the first time the unthinkable degradation of military life when comrades killed each other. As a retired military officer who was promoted by the SVT-GBP coalition government to the rank of Major General to take up the post of Force Commander of UNIFIL, he would have been devastated. He was highly decorated as a peacekeeper, keeping warring factions apart in a war-torn Lebanon. They had torn Lebanon up into shreds and enclaves based on religious lines against the interests of the simple, peace-loving indigenous Lebanese. Madam Speaker, His Excellency did not mention those killed in 2000, leaving it to us, honourable members of this honourable and august Assembly, to work out our way into finding how best to deal with the aftermath of group intolerance. Madam Speaker, His Excellency General Konrote did not mention the coup of 2006, which was carried out by the then commander and now our Prime Minister, because His Excellency the President was a victim. He was forcibly removed as a cabinet minister in Prime Minister Ndarase's government. And true to his character as a leader, he does not continue to complain and moan as many would naturally do. With his totally different and opposing experiences in the coups of 1987, 2000, and 2006, His Excellency the President of Fiji, a great servant of Fiji and the world, as a decorated soldier, United Forces commander, diplomat, Permanent Secretary, and Minister, has taken this opportunity, while the two leaders of the coups of 1987 and 2006 are on opposite sides of this house. And all Fijians is calling on all of us to work together for real peace, stability, and prosperity under a truly democratically enacted constitution based on true reconciliation, restorative justice, and genuine goodwill. There will be no need for handouts, as people will be encouraged to be self-sufficient in food production, employment creation, real social responsibility workers, family-based human resource developers at homes, and God-fearing citizens free to worship in our free land, all collectively recreating our Fiji as the way the world should be. Madam Speaker, correct? Correct. Madam Speaker, I now call on the Honourable Prime Minister to accept my offer as leader of the loyal opposition of the Parliament of Fiji. The two of us as co-leaders of 87 and 2006 respectively, to work together and give back to the people of Fiji, the Fijians, a country they can all be proud of, a land of hope and glory to endure whatever befalls. May God bless Fiji forevermore.